Well, guys, for this first location, we're at a church. The church is called the Bedford Church of Christ. And I saw this building while driving around one day. And you can see me crouching down. I get it, Robbie Maynard. I understand why Mr. Maynard has to crouch, because I want to get the shot in there. But I also want me in there, and my tripod just isn't tall enough. But I digress. Anyway, I saw this shot. I do love how the light hits the church, the summer light. You get a beautiful combination of shadows versus highlights. And I'll show you how I meter with my Seaconic L308 for a situation like this. It's very simple. I keep things simple. First I'll go in the shadows. I'm here in the shadow. So now I'm in shadow. Shadows are reading, f5.6 at 200. So now I'm going to go in the sun, literally. I'm going to go over here. And I got an F16, so that's 3 stops apart, F5.6, F8, F11, F16, 4 stops apart. So we're going to go in the middle somewhere, and that's just how I measure, so that's as simple as it is. Now guys, since the Mamiya doesn't have an f200, I'm going f250, which is a little bit less light, but then I'll be shooting at f8. We do want to overexpose just a little bit, not to get crushed blacks. I've seen this film have crushed blacks. I don't like, completely crushed blacks with no information. I like some gritty blacks where there's something going on, a little bit of underexposure, a little bit of moodiness, if you will, but not crushed blacks. So we are going to lean towards overexposure a little bit, but we're right in the middle. And by the way, I'm shooting with the Mamiya because it has a 55mm lens. It's a 34mm equivalent in 35mm, don't get confused. But it's a nice wide angle, and I think I can get this shot. Yeah, to me as a European, again, I like this type of stuff. You might not, but you can learn from it. And that was fun, by the way, guys, because the meter of the Mamiya tells me I should have shot at 1/500 of a second. So we're a little over, and I'm okay with that. We won't have shadows that are crushed. And so, you guys see the photo, right? All right, off to the next location.
So guys, right off the bat, we're treading water. As you can see, the first exposure, because I took a second follow-up shot, just, it's a new film. You want to see if you're really, on point. But, wow, we've got some blown highlights, and that's just one stop over. Not sure what goes on here. or what is going on here. One thing I do know is that as a rather long development time, these photos have been developed in Ulfasol 3 at a 1:9 ratio. And the indication on the CineStill website, or the instruction set to develop for 15 minutes. Woo-wee! Now, out of experience, I know that the longer you develop, especially with a strong developer, there's always the possibility to blow out your highlights. So I developed at 14 minutes and we still get this result. Thankfully, we didn't get this result on the whole film, as you will see later in some other photos that I took there. The second photo, let me quickly go over there on the computer, I took with the meter at 1/500 of a second to see what would the Mamiya do. And yes, although better, we still see those blown highlights. I think that is just an I don't know. I mean, it's the first time I shot this film. It could be the developer. It could be just the nature of the film. Who knows? Maybe it's just a batch. Because I did see some highlights that have to be tamed. You're about to see that. But wow, did we get some blown highlights here? Might have to revisit this location. It's too early to make a conclusion. I do think it's a beautiful film. And I'm not going to fault it for that, because I've had issues with other films. With developing, you never know what you're gonna get. It's a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. It's as simple as it is.
Well, guys, this second location I'm definitely excited about. And of course, there's a vehicle just driving by. The second location I'm definitely excited about. I think it's abandoned, but then I think it's not, because there's a brand new truck in the back. You can see why. It's a very interesting location, but a bit trickier to meter because of the backlit situation. And I kind of wanted the sun to dip. So I kind of wanted the sun to dip behind the tree line, but this is just the time that me and my girl were able to come out here. So it's heavily backlit, but we're going to make the best out of it. A little bit of a profile never really hurts. So metering is going to be a little bit trickier here. So obviously we need to know what the sun's doing and what the shadows are doing. Sun again, 1/200 at 118. At 118 at f18. 200, 400 ISO, 400 ISO, f18, 1/200 of a second. So in the shadows, we're looking at 4.5. So the BwXX hopefully has that latitude. That's 5 stops apart, about. So we're going to go, I guess f8 again. A little bit of an overexposure, but it's at 1/250th of a second. So that's where I'm gonna place it. We will get some. Yeah, we do want to get a silhouette, so I'm definitely going to shoot one at f11 as well. And we're definitely going to get a little bit of that bright sun, but it is what it is. Here comes the second one at f11. I want to get maybe take a shot with some foreground in there, which is going to be here.
Naturally, guys, I had to see how this film would do under studio circumstances, i.e. studio light, and I can't really say that I dislike it there, although it's not my preferential film there. We can see some of those same things going on in the highlights, i.e. blown highlights, which definitely by now has to be that bloom. I didn't think it was going to give me quite that much trouble in the highlights. I had seen examples online before, of course, and you have to really be careful under high contrast circumstances with this film not to blow out your highlights. Furthermore, I took a photo, of course, of Jamie in an identical situation on Ilford FB4 Plus, and you can see in this photo that to me it's just a more pleasing film in that aspect, but then again it is my favorite black and white film, so yeah, there's some big shoes to fill here for CineStill BwXX. All things considered, not a bad film in the studio, and you can certainly get some pleasing results. It's a more classic emulsion. As you see, it's a more gritty emulsion, not as smooth, not as modern, but that's okay. That's not why I was shooting the film, that's not what I expected, and every film is beautiful in its own right. In summary, guys, I wanted to go over one of the shots on the roll that I think really portrays very well what this film is all about. Obviously, there's tons of sharpness, plenty sharp for anything that you'll ever need. There's good dynamic range. If you look at the gradations going from the highlights to the darks, there's plenty of dynamic range for what you'll need. Yeah, we do have some blooming, and so in high contrast lighting circumstances, conditions, you do need to pace yourself just a little bit. It's almost like you get a free pro mist filter on some of these shots. But then you have these really beautiful underexposed areas that don't all the way crush. Obviously here they do a little bit, but there's something going on in them. Like, if you see here a little bit, they get a little bit gritty, which I think it's incredibly beautiful. It's one of the strength of this film, one of the plus points, I should say, in order to not roll over my own tongue here. But it's a gorgeous film. It's a very classic looking film, and that's always a plus point in my opinion. That would be very interesting to try out on the streets, because this film does have such a beautifully classic look. Might even be my favorite film out on the streets. We would definitely have to revisit that there. But yeah, CineStill Black and White BwXX, beautiful film, definitely has its applications. If you can tame those highlights, or you're shooting you're shooting in conditions that aren't as contrasty, this film is absolutely gorgeous. You've seen where, in my opinion, some of the weak points lie. But having said that, can you really call those weak points? I mean, beautiful film. Guys, I'll leave you with all the photos that I shot on this roll on that day. I love you, and I'll see you in next week's episode.